Hey there, vinyl community YouTubers and all my vinyl loving friends. There was a thread going around out there on the vinyl community YouTube community, as I refer to it, and as it is known. This thread subject was kind of show me your least valuable records and your most valuable records, and that kind of is based on a valuation tool that most collectors use called Discogs. It's a tool that it's free. You can download it on your phone, use it on your computer, whatever. Catalog your collection, and based on the condition of your collection, get a value for that, as well as seeing a median value on the market as to what something might be worth. Because Discogs is also a buying and selling tool where it's like acts like a third-party seller, and they take a cut, kind of like an eBay principle. I'm not a buyer or seller on there. I prefer to still go to stores and trade for store credit, but that's just me. I'm a bit of a traditionalist like that and not a real techie, but I do like the value of Discogs to determine what my stuff is worth. And that said, let's move into it. So today I thought I'd focus on 6 of each of those categories, 6 releases of a higher value in my collection and 6 of a lesser value. So let's work our way from the bottom to the top. And when I say the bottom to the top, I don't mean these artists or music groups are particularly bad by any stretch. In fact, these are really good selections. It's just what they're worth. And out on the marketplace, if there's a glut of anything, it drives the price down, versus the rare stuff, the price goes up. So the old supply and demand curves come into play. So we kick this off today with the great Joe Walsh. The smoker you drink, the player you get. This was released in 1973. Features all the members of his band Barnstorm at the time, post James Gang. Of course, there's Joe Vitale, long collaborator. They actually went to Kent State University in Ohio together, and came up through the James Gang, and then eventually Joe plays on all of Joe Walsh's solo releases, including this one. This is gatefold sleeve on this one. Of course, on the inside you can see all the band. There they are. And there's Joe himself. So on this one you've got, of course, there's Rocky Mountain Way on this. Bookends is an excellent track. And of course Meadows. Meadows is probably my favorite on this album. Again, the great Joe Walsh. I'm sure you've probably heard of this one, if not for the one-hit wonder. This is the Knack, Get the Knack, released in 1979. The Knack were formed in Los Angeles, played up and down the Sunset Strip, and labels were begging to sign these guys at the time. So the story goes, they're there on the back. Doug Fieger up front, the front man who sadly died of lung cancer, I believe back in 2012, 2013. They did this one and one follow-up that I'm aware of. Like I said, labels were jumping to sign these guys. They were kind of unique at the time. Kind of power pop, I guess I'd call it, American power pop. Of course, you know, the big hit, My Sharona, kicks off side 2 on this. Good Girls Don't. Maybe Tonight. That's what the little girls do. There's a lot of really good 3-4 minute catchy pop tunes on this. But they were their own worst enemy. They played live, but they wouldn't do interviews for some reason, so the press really piled on with these guys. And in fact, there was a campaign probably a year after this was released, called Nuke the Knack. They just wouldn't do interviews, so that doesn't really work if you're trying to get some traction and make a bigger name for yourself. But again, Get the Knack. And that clocks in, by the way, I should be telling you the values of these. That Joe Walsh album I just showed, the median value for that, $3.55 in US dollars currently. And the Knack coming in at $2.42 based on Discogs valuation. The third album I'll show today, Deep Purple. Yes. In the back there. Beautiful gatefold sleeve with this one, kind of a collage of photos of the band on the inside. Of course, I mean, this is packed. Highway Star, Maybe I'm a Leo, Smoke on the Water, the incredible Lazy, and of course it finishes off with Space Truckin'. There you can see there's frontman Ian Gillan. Amazingly, this coming in at only $3.64 a median value on this one. Kind of essential. You know, the same school of rock, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. If you don't have any Deep Purple, you really need to get some. This is probably in my top 3. They have a pretty long catalog, and there was some personnel changes over the years. Ian Gillan left for a while and then came back. Even David Coverdale stepped in not long after this for one album that might have been called Firestorm. I could be getting that, or Fireball rather. But anyway, Deep Purple, Machine Head. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. Of course, this is a compact disc. I don't know what this is worth, market value, but this was from the same tour from Machine Head. This was recorded in one show in Osaka, Japan, on the tour, like I said, for Machine Head. And this came out 1973. So, made in Japan. I mean, who wasn't doing a live album in Japan in the 1970s? You know, Cheap Trick, of course, the Live at Budokan. These guys, Iron Maiden did one appropriately called Made in Japan, spelled M-A-I-D-E-N, Japan. But it just seemed to be the thing to do, was do a live album in Japan. And they did one. So going back to my home country, Canada, straight out of Winnipeg, the Guess Who, live at the Paramount Theatre in Seattle, Washington. This album was released in 1972, I believe recorded the same year. Yeah, May 22nd, 1972 at the Paramount. Really nice gatefold sleeve. You can see all the band in there. So of course all the standards are here. New Mother Nature's on here. There's a really great version of American Woman, clocking in at around 18 minutes. Super jam on that one. Running Back to Saskatoon. I mean, you've heard all these songs, especially if you're from Canada. You've heard them a million times, but this was a really, really good live version. It kind of gives new life to all those songs that I just mentioned. Again, the Guess Who live at the Paramount. Medium value for this on Discogs currently rounding off at $4 even. Yeah, a great deal, a steal if you will, live at the Paramount. Moving a little more into the soulful sounds, great Isaac Hayes. This album's called the Isaac Hayes Movement. This was released in 1970. Medium value for this one coming in at $5 even. It's really a masterpiece. There's the man himself on the gatefold sleeve. It's only 4 songs on this. He collaborated a lot during the 1960s prior to this with another guy named Jerry Butler. They wrote a lot of songs for artists on the Stax record label, STAX if you're not familiar. He was predominantly a piano player, Isaac Hayes, but he's a multi-instrumental guy. He could play most things. On this album in particular, there's only 4 songs. It's 1 song per side. Of course, the highlights include a Jerry Butler penned original, I Stand Accused, that comes in at 11 minutes, 30 seconds. That's probably my favorite on this. There's also a Burt Bacharach, Hal David number, I Don't Know What to Do With Myself, which is on here. Again, like I said last week when I was talking about artists that can really capture, do a cover of another artist and make it their own. Yeah, just the Burt Bacharach, Hal David, you wouldn't know you were listening to a composition by those 2 gentlemen when you hear Isaac Hayes' version of it. So again, the Isaac Hayes Movement, and the Discogs value on this one coming in at a medium value of $5 US. And lastly, the New Riders of the Purple Sage. If you haven't heard of them, you need to look them up. Great country hippie rock, I guess I'd call these guys, in the school of Graham Parsons and the Flying Burrito Brothers, Grateful Dead. Like if you like the Working Man's Dead, Grateful Dead album, you'll definitely dig this. This album was released in 1973, of course called The Adventures of Panama Red. Yeah, there's the cowboy in the front, firing up a real big rocket there. Yeah, just a lot of drug references in their music, a lot of comedy almost, if you would. There's a comic strip on the inside, kind of in the same school, that artwork of the comic artist Robert Crumb kind of brings that to mind to me, but I'm not an art critic. Again, this features the title track, Panama Red. That's excellent. It's All Right With Me, Lonesome LA Cowboy, Teardrops in My Eyes, LA Lady. Just real great. Put it on, have a brew, whatever. It's just real kickback, fun music, sing along. New Riders of the Purple Sage. This coming in at a medium value, $5.54, and it's a deal at that. But if you can find it in your local used store, This is probably my favorite release of theirs. They did a lot of their output in the early, between 1970 and 1975. They were putting a record out like every 6 months. And did their first album, I believe Jerry Garcia played pedal steel guitar on a few of the tracks, and Phil Lesh sat in on bass as well. Yeah, they were big fans of the New Riders, of the Purple Sage. Moving on, let's see. So we're moving in now into the more expensive stuff. Not to be a snob, but I thought we'd work our way up from the bottom and go right up to the top. And I showed this band a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about some of my favorite artists from the 80s. I showed this album. This was the third and final release by a band called the Chameleons Uk. This was released in 1986, coming in at a median value of $70. Don't know if I'd pay $70 for any record. I'm a little, it's just a lot of money to lay down for a record unless you got an extra $70 to throw down on a record. But I mean, is it an excellent record? Yes, it is. This is a 5+ stars. I would give this. But again, Strange Times, 1986, median value of $70. Again, sticking right into the 80s here. It seems some of this stuff, I never had any idea at the time I bought it, would accelerate in value, but here we are in 2021, and things, some things go up in value and some don't. This band from Vancouver, British Columbia, kind of a goth industrial outfit, if you will. I don't think that even quite captures what these guys were capable of. If you think Ministry, think Skinny Puppy, early Ministry, very similar to what these guys were doing at the time. This was on the Network label, later was, I guess, distributed by Capitol Records at the time. This was released in 1985. The median value for this one coming in at $58.12. $58.12. Of course, this features Assimilate, The Choke, Blood on the Wall. If you're in any kind of dark alternative clubs in the city at the time, you would definitely be hearing some Skinny Puppy over the loudspeakers. Great. And we're getting close to the end here. Short video today. It's kind of this 6 and 6 theme, 6 low, 6 high. And we come into this classic here, Lou Reed and Friends, known as The Velvet Underground. The Velvet Underground Loaded album was released in 1970. A lot of great tracks on this. Of course, everybody knows Sweet Jane. Rock and Roll's on here. Cool It Down. Lonesome Cowboy Bill. I Found a Reason. That's a real nice slow song. I really love that. Of course, Oh Sweet Nothing. Who Loves the Sun. I mean, every song on this is good. I've just listed them all basically, and they're all great. I'll probably listen to this later. Again, this was released in 1970, and the median value on Discogs for this currently, this is coming in at $47.75. Do you believe it? Of course, my copies are all in very good plus, near mint condition. That New Riders, the Purple Sage album of mine, the jacket's a little worn, but other than that, the record itself's in pretty great condition. This is one of those this next record is one of those where I was in a store at the time in Toronto. I was up in Toronto with my parents, visiting my grandparents, and somehow I was downtown. And Record Peddler was a shop down there on Yonge Street. And they had a lot of the best alternative stuff you could find, heavy metal, thrash, whatever, anything different. They had it. Certainly wasn't where you went to buy whatever was in the top 10. Very alternative and deep cuts. Speaking of, this was blasting in there. One day I happened to be in there. Pile Driver, the Metal Inquisition. This was released in 1984. I mean, some of these song titles, it borderlines on parody. If that cover doesn't do it on its own, you're heading into Spinal Tap country. But not to overuse the Spinal Tap analogy, but I think it really applies here. But this is really surprisingly good. It's kind of thrashy, heavy, kind of in the school of British band Venom at the time, who were comparable in their sound. If you ain't a metalhead, then you might as well be dead on the guy's shirt here. Isn't that hilarious? Of course, the title track on this, Sex with Satan, if that doesn't scare you, wow. Human Sacrifice. I mean, of course, the themes of, that thrash metal was all of that kind of goings on, if you will. Metal Inquisition, this album coming in at a crashing median value of $52. Can you believe it? I certainly can't. Based on, at the time, again, I'm shocked at what these are worth. Still staying in the 80s here. Everybody knows this band, New Order, kind of a band that rose from the ashes. I know that's being dramatic, rising from the ashes. People throw that around, but that's basically what happened when lead vocalist Ian Curtis from Joy Division passed away. Death by suicide. And so this is a collection that was released, of course, in 1987. They were formed in 1980, like I said, after Joy Division was done. And this is just basically, as I like to say, a sum of all parts. The artwork on the inside, nothing really fancy. They're very minimalist in their covers, in their cover art. No pictures of the band, that kind of thing. Just wasn't their thing. Of course, everything's on here. Thieves Like Us, Ceremony, one of their earlier tracks. Everything's Gone Green, Subculture, Perfect Kiss. Of course, everybody knows Bizarre Love Triangle. That was a huge song in my first year of university. You couldn't go to a club and not hear that. But this coming in, and it's a double album, by the way, I should say. Median value on this one is $67.12. Of course, my copy in pretty good shape, considering it went through a lot of parties at the time. But I always take care of my stuff, and it's pretty much in the same shape it is today as when I bought it back then in 1987. What else do we have here? Oh, yeah. Yeah, speaking of another favorite from around that time period, the Violent Femme, self-titled. These guys, quirky alternative in the tradition of Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. You know, everybody, of course, knows this Blister in the Sun. You all know that song. If you went to university in the mid-'80s to late 80s, you would always hear this at the pub. Very popular song. Although there's a few other hits on this. I wouldn't say hits, actually. There's some nice songs on it. Kiss Off, Prove My Love, To the Kill, Gone Daddy Gone. It's very listenable, and it's catchy, it's quirky. It's the Violent Femmes, American outfit. I believe they were from Minnesota. This coming in at a median value of $48.75. Can you believe that? The Violent Femmes, self-titled, $48.75. It's the only one I have of theirs. Bought it at the time because it was, you know, it was pretty popular. You know, you have parties, people really dug it. So, Violent Femmes. Lastly, also from the 80s, the debut album from Killing Joke. I showed a live 10-inch release I had of theirs in that 80s video I made a few weeks ago. These guys, really hard to categorize, as I said in my other video. You know, I guess people just simply called it alternative at the time. This is their self-titled debut from 1980. What we had leads off with, let's see here, it's kind of the cool way the font there. Requiem, kicking this off, leading to War Dance, Bloodsport, The Wait, Complications, Change, all really good. This coming in at a median value of $55.52. Killing Joke, self-titled debut. A friend of mine here in Natick, where I live, I turned him on to these guys, and he bought a copy online. I'd be curious to know what he paid for it. If it was a newer pressing of this, I don't know if it's been re-released, repressed, if you will. This is an original copy from the time it came out in 1980. I was just a young lad when I bought this. But again, coming in at an amazing $55.52. So I had a couple of other albums from some of the bands I showed today. Just curious to show also what these were worth. This was a 12-inch EP by Skinny Puppy. It's called Remission. This only has, see, 6 songs on it. This comes in at pretty amazing $53.46. This was released not long after the Bites album that I showed earlier. One more from Skinny Puppy, Cleanse, Fold, and Manipulate. This came out in 1987, and the median value on this one coming in at $47.75. So yeah, Addiction's on this. Deep Down Trauma Hounds is on this. It's an excellent song. But you really got to be in the mood for it. Again, it's more for really loud in a club. in the School of Ministry, you know, Gothic industrial. That is Skinny Puppy. And lastly, shift back to New Order here. This is an album called Brotherhood. This came out a year before that, the 1987 double compilation that I showed earlier. Again, very minimalist artwork. This album called Brotherhood. It's not worth very much. This comes in at only $16.75. Again, the big hit on this one was Bizarre Love Triangle. The rest of this is pretty much forgettable. But I bought it at the time because I was a big New Order fan and a bit of a completist. So I have all their stuff between vinyl, 12-inch singles. I got a bunch of those, and compact discs, and of course the 3 Joy Division albums. I have those as well on compact disc. So that wraps up another video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, trying to keep these short. Looks like I'm in around 20 minutes today, which is my goal to kind of keep these at. Hope you're finding these interesting. And again, you never know what stuff's worth. So if you do have some old records, Discogs, I recommend it. You can go on there, create a free account, see what your stuff's worth. You may be sitting on gold. You never know. But it's good for me to know because, again, like I like to go to stores, buy and sell. And, you know, when I'm getting store credit, I just want to play fair and get what it's worth. So anyway, I hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see you next time.